Hello my darlings, welcome or welcome back to my channel. It has been a hot minute. It's been a couple of months. I had a little bit of a hiatus, not intended to be as long as it was, but we're back, we're here, new bookshelf in tow, and hopefully some better health coming, but welcome back. Thanks for being here. Thanks so much for watching. Bit of an update. I have still been reading, however, kind of made it a little bit more of an enjoyment sort of thing, which means that there's been plenty of Doctor Who audios and graphic novels involved. It's been nice. It's been nice to read with just the intention of reading with no reason behind it. However, it hasn't been the most successful couple of months of reading. There's been a couple of reading slumps in there, hence the immense amount of Doctor Who that I have been ingesting. But you know what? I'm hoping that the next half of the year will be a different story. But yeah, I thought I would jump on and give a mid-year freakout book tag a go. So this is definitely not my own by any means. This is something that's been sort of around for a long time. I've been viewing them every year and absolutely love them, and thought this is a great opportunity to give it a go. So there's 13 questions and I'm going to go through and answer them to the best of my ability. I'm kind of winging this again. It's been a while, so my confidence has dwindled a little, but let's do this together. I'll pop the questions in the description box below so that you can answer them yourself. I'd love to hear them in the comments. Also, I'd love to hear what you've been reading the last couple of months and if there's anything that you highly recommend, because I have decided, despite the fact that I was literally just saying I have been reading purely for enjoyment purposes the last couple of months, I have discovered this insanely hard reading challenge that will be going from the 7th of July through to the 6th of July next year. And I'm going to give it a red hot go. So there will be a lot of talk about that challenge, I am sure, in future videos over the course of the 12 months that I will be trying to achieve it. I will probably do a video sort of describing a little bit more what it is about. It is a challenge that has been so kindly created by QWordy on YouTube, and it really supports a lot of indie authors, and it also gives you so many different prompts that I think are just going to be so exciting to try and tick off the list as the year goes by. And yeah, lots of data, and she seems to be a data girly, and I completely align with that. So I'm super excited, and hopefully it will be a reason for me to try and stay as motivated as possible with this channel and keep going with my reading and YouTube journey. But anyway, let's get on to the questions for the mid-year freakout book tag. First question is the best book you've read in 2024 so far. I've had a rough reading year. I've read a lot of books. I've read 138 books up until the 30th of June, which is quite a big number. I'm quite impressed with myself, even though a lot of those are graphic novels and audiobooks. I think that they are all valid and they all count. There hasn't been a lot of like 5-star reads, a lot of really successful books that I thoroughly enjoyed. There's actually been a lot of reading slumps where I've had to sort of bring myself back into enjoying books with graphic novels and audiobooks and just reading absolute trash. You know, I'm currently working my way through the first Ice Planet Barbarians book and I am loving every second of it, but I am so aware of how out there it is. So that's been great, but that's not the best book. By far, it is not the best book. So the best book that I think that I've read this year would be Here and Now and Then by Mike Chen. This was one that I picked up purely because of the time travel vibes. I am a time travel, dimension travel girly. Sci-fi has become a huge part of my reading, which I never thought would be the case, but here we are. So Here and Now and Then by Mike Chen was one that I picked up on a whim. I looked up time travel books and this one happened to be one of the ones that caught my eye. It's about Kin Stewart, and Kin Stewart is an IT guy. He is just living his life in the 90s. He's got a wife and a daughter, a teenage girl named Miranda. He's hiding pretty massive secret. And that secret is that he is actually from the year 2142. He is a time travel secret agent who came back in time and got stuck here. So it starts off that he has been stranded in San Francisco since the 1990s, and he has kept his past hidden. He has continued on with his life, but one day the secret agents come to collect him, and in the future, it's only been 2 weeks. For him, it has been 20 years. So he has to go back to the future and discovers that there's so much of his life that he's forgotten. He has to wrangle with the fact that he has had to leave his wife behind and is now having to reconnect with this person from his past or his future. Timey-wimey. Timey-wimey stuff. The reason that he doesn't remember the future or his past is because he's suffered extreme memory loss as well as increasing blackouts, because he's stuck out of his time zone, and and the impacts of that, the physical impacts and mental impacts of that have been quite extreme. But yeah, he has to return to 2142 and he has to wrangle with that. And look, I really loved it. I was expecting a little bit more jumping forwards and backwards in time. However, there were rules and restrictions, which makes sense. You know, everyone's got different ideas of the sort of rules, and I love all of the different theories. So I did really enjoy this, despite the fact that there wasn't a whole lot of jumping forward and back in time. But I really love the idea of actions being made to change the past and seeing the effects of that, and this really had that in the bag. It was a really fun read. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I highly recommend it if you haven't read it, and it's probably a really good jump into time travel if it's a genre that you haven't really delved into before, because yes, it is a sci-fi, yes, it has those sci-fi elements, but I really struggle with the whole idea of like being out in space and all of the scientific stuff that comes with that. But this is just a really nice like toe dip into the sci-fi genre, and it's not too, you don't have to have a degree in science to understand the book. So yeah, I highly recommend it. I think that it was a great read. Let me know in the comments if you've read it, what your thoughts were. But yeah, that's probably the best book I've read so far in 2024. The next question is the best sequel you have read so far in 2024. I gotta be honest with you, I started a reading vlog for this book series because I had every intention of doing a reading vlog. However, I didn't have nearly as many reactions as I thought that I would. This was a series that I thought was going to prompt a lot of discussion. However, I ended up just really loving it. And that's hard for me to acknowledge, because this is a series that I have avoided for a very, very long time because of its popularity. It kind of sat in the Colleen Hoover zone for me. The knowledge that it's not necessarily a well-written book, but that it is so popular and so famous. So I really held off reading these for a long, long time. I've started the Sarah J Maas books, starting with ACOTAR, and the best sequel I've read so far this year is A Court of Mist and Fury. I really did not think that I would be saying that. I'm up to book 3 and I will talk about the first book later because that's one of the other prompts, but I can tell you that this book got me really into this series. I did not think that I would be this into a fae series. I have to be honest, it's been a long time since I have been open to the idea of reading stories set in a fae sort of world. But this hooked me in. This hooked me in, I have to admit. If you haven't read them yet, I won't give any spoilers away because, you know, the second book goes a completely different way to what I expected. But I think that's why I enjoyed it so much, because I know that the first book was kind of like I plodded along until the very end and then I was just jaw drop. Like, it was just insane. But this book went, completely different direction, which I absolutely loved. And without giving anything away, my choice, my favorite, gets a sort of happy ending. I don't know how it's gonna go. I haven't read any more of them. I'm working my way through the third one at the moment, but so hopefully it stays that way. But I was really, really happy with how this turned out. I have to be honest. I know that it kind of did a whole 180 compared to the first book, but I loved it. Even though I didn't end up doing my vlog for this series, I am considering doing one for her other series. Let me know in the comments if that's something that you would be interested in seeing. Yeah, Court of Mist and Fury. Did not think that it would be the best sequel, but here we are. Question 3 is a new release that you haven't read yet, but you want to. This was one that I picked up as soon as it released, and yet I still haven't had the chance to read it. I took it with me when my brother went in for surgery back in April, but didn't end up starting it, and it has just been sitting on my TBR for ages. But that is A Tempest of Tea by Hafsa Fazal. I'm so excited to read this. As soon as I saw it on Goodreads and read the synopsis, I was just like, I need to read this book. I'm super excited. I have really, really high hopes, and I'm really hoping to get to it very, very soon. This book is about Arthi, and Arthi has a prestigious tea room, and at night it is an illegal blood house. It's a heist story. Apparently the ragtag crew involved in the heist are not particularly honest characters, so I'm really looking forward to seeing how this goes. I'm so intrigued, and I'm really annoyed that I haven't had the chance to read it yet, but it's very high on the priority list, and I'm hoping that I will be able to use this reading challenge as a way to get my hands on this and get through it. Question 4 is the most anticipated release for the second half of the year. There hasn't been a lot of books. I haven't been keeping track the last couple of months. I've just been trying to work my way through my TBR. However, I did see All This and More by Pink Shepherd. So this is another sort of time travel one. It looks like it's a choose your own ending sort of situation. I don't know the full extent, but it really got me intrigued. The story is about Marsh. Marsh has just turned 45. Her life is a bit in shambles, but she gets the opportunity to jump on this show that uses quantum technology in order for her to be able to go back in the past and make different decisions and see the outcomes of those. I love these sorts of stories. I really, really loved Midnight Library by Matt Haig, which is very, very similar sort of vibes. Lots of differing reviews about this one, but this was just such a feel-good read for me, and actually one that I want to reread at some point. All This and More just looks really, really intriguing. It looks down the same sort of alley. It, you know, delves into the choices we make and the outcomes of that, and, you know, if you had the opportunity to go back, would it make much difference? I love delving into that sort of theory, and yeah, seeing if, you know, it's worth going back and trying again and getting it right this time, and is it actually right? It's actually out. This time next week it'll be out. So even though I'm still attempting a book buying ban, very unsuccessfully, might I add, this may be one that I might have to pick up. So yeah, super excited for that one. Another one that I'm really pumped about that is coming out in the second half of the year is Wind and Truth by Brandon Sanderson. I have not read book 3 and 4 yet, but I'm hoping that by the time Wind and Truth comes out, I will have at least made a good dent into that. I am 2 books in. I absolutely love the series. There are so many Brandon books, and I have to be honest with you, I actually haven't picked up any in the first 6 months, and I'm really, really disappointed that I haven't had the opportunity to do that. I probably would have had a much more successful year of reading so far if I had have picked up a few more Brandon. So that's going to change the second half of this year. I really would like to be able to get onto Wind and Truth as soon as it's out, but I'm also not going to put that pressure on myself because they are chunky boys. They are chunky boys. So we will see, but that's another one that I'm really excited about coming out, and we'll see how we go. We'll see if Wind and Truth ends up being on my end of the year read. I doubt it, but I'm excited for it. Next one is The Biggest Disappointments. I have 2 for this. One is picked it up hoping it would be great, pushed my way through it, hoping for a good ending, and was bitterly disappointed. And the other one is one that just, I wasn't disappointed by the story. I enjoyed the story, but it went a completely different direction to what I thought. And that was what was disappointing for me, but it was also still a good read, if that makes sense. I'll explain. The first one is Utopia Avenue by David Mitchell. I have not delved into David Mitchell's works before. I watched Cloud Atlas, can't remember it, can't remember anything about it except for the fact that it absolutely confused the bejeebers out of me. In saying that, I have heard so many good things about David Mitchell's work, so I was really excited to pick up Utopia Avenue. I was hoping for similar vibes to Daisy Jones and the Six. Really didn't deliver. I loved Daisy Jones and the Six. I love books about rock stars and rock bands and, you know, all the things that they go through, but this was a slog. This was a slog. I felt like all of the topics that were addressed and then brushed aside. Like there was no real reason for them except for creating songs. And I don't know about you guys, but when I like find songs in books and I can't hear the music that goes with it, it just doesn't resonate for me. I'm a huge music fan and I love reading about rock bands and music and all of that. But when a huge topic is just brushed over to create some song lyrics for a song that doesn't actually exist in a book, I don't know, it just didn't hit. It just didn't hit for me. I pushed my way through. It is chunky. It is like well over 500 pages and there is so much in there and yet nothing really happens. There's not a lot of plot. There's not a lot of character development. And then the end is just a bit of a, really? It was so disappointing and I was so excited because I've heard such great things about David Mitchell's writing, but yeah, it just missed the mark completely for me. One of those ones that I probably should have just DNF'd, but you know, I always try so hard to finish books, especially because I've now experienced Brandon, you know, the slow build up and then the bam at the end. I always hope that maybe that's what's coming, but this one just really, really missed the mark for me. And then the one that was the biggest disappointment, purely because it didn't go in a direction I hoped. However, it was still a decent read and I did enjoy it. It just didn't become like a top favorite, like a 5-star for me, but that is The Ministry of Time by Kellyanne Bradley. This one was so beautifully picked up by my other half. We went book shopping and bought a book for each other to read on our travels back home after a trip to Melbourne, and I made a start on it and I really did enjoy it. It is a good book. I would recommend it. However, if you're looking for time travel, if you're looking for the excitement of people going back in time, it doesn't deliver that. This is more about people from the past coming to the future and having to deal with adjusting to that. And it's, look, I did enjoy it. I did enjoy it and I will be covering it a little bit more in another prompt because one of the characters was so great in this. So I definitely wouldn't say it was like the biggest disappointment. It definitely hands down is nothing compared to Utopia Avenue. That really grinded my gears. How hard it was to slog through that book. But yeah, just disappointing in that it was not what I expected, but still a decent read. Question 6 is the biggest surprise, and it will be, based on what I've said so far, it will be no surprise to you that my biggest surprise was A Court of Thorn and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. So this was one, like I said, I have been avoiding. I'd heard that this is kind of like a Beauty and the Beast retelling, that the end knocks that theory out of the park, and I did find myself forcing my way through it. I enjoyed the storyline. It wasn't bad by any means, but the last few chapters, the last 150 pages, crazy, so good. I wouldn't say that literary wise it's the best book I've ever read. It's fairly basic writing, but sometimes that's so good. Sometimes that's what you need. I was kind of calling this like good trash, but I would say the more that I'm reading it, I don't know that it's necessarily trash, you know? I am thoroughly enjoying it. I think the spicy scenes are great. I am kind of nervous about continuing the series. I know that A Court of Silver Flames is mostly spicy stuff. It's well-written spicy stuff, so we'll see how that goes. But yes, it was the biggest surprise to me that I actually really enjoyed it. The next question is your favorite new author, debut or new to me. Because it's been a not so great year, I haven't read a lot of new authors particularly that have won me over. And this is a hard one as well because, you know, if you read, sometimes you read one good book by this new author and you're just like, I want to read everything in their catalogue, and then nothing else kind of hits the mark. But in saying that, I will be looking for more of Mike Chen's work. I think that his writing was brilliant. I really enjoyed that reading experience and I'd love to see what else he brings out. And Sarah J. Maas. Sarah J. Maas is good for reading a book that hooks you in and, you know, you get absorbed in the story and you feel what the characters feel. It's been really great. And yeah, I've become a little bit of a maths girly. So we'll see where that goes. We'll see if it'll continue, but at this point, yeah, they're my favorite authors so far this year. Still staying on the Sarah J Maas train, my newest fictional crush. I don't necessarily do crushes. It's been a long time since I found characters that I absolutely adore and, you know, am in love with. But out of all of the characters that I've kind of been reading about lately, I would have to say that Rhysand, I hope that's how you pronounce it, Rhysand is probably my favorite. Don't necessarily like what he does in the first book, and I found it really uncomfortable that I was so invested in his character despite the fact that he was so bad in the first book. But I love what has happened for Rhysand in the series, and I'm really excited to see a little bit more about that. Newest favourite character, we're going to jump back into the Ministry of Time. Commander Graham Gore, who's actually a real person from history. He died on Sir John Franklin's doomed expedition to the Arctic, and in this he is sort of caught before he dies and brought forward in time and has to adjust to that. There is a bit of romance as well, but I thoroughly enjoyed him. I love the way that he sort of worked through the fact that he's from 1847 and all of the changes that have gone on between then and now, coming to terms with that, becoming more accustomed to that, and then, you know, becoming kind of like a cool biker dude with a leather jacket, and yeah, cool vibes. I enjoyed him. There's a picture in the back of the actual man. And yeah, I see it. I see him in leather and riding a motorbike, and he was cool. I enjoyed him. The next prompt is a book that made me cry. I actually haven't cried much for any of the books so far this year, which is a bit disappointing. I love a book that tears at my heartstrings, so hopefully I'll get a few of those in the second half of the year. But I have to say that the one that kind of got me the closest to crying was I Am, 17 Brushes with Death by Maggie O'Farrell. This was my first Maggie O'Farrell. I have bought some of her books, haven't had the chance to read them, but when I was at the library, I picked this one up, so it became my first read of hers, and I love her writing style. I think that, you know, it was a non-fiction. It talked about all of the near-death experiences she's had in her life and the lessons that she's learnt from those. And there was a lot of really triggering subjects, so you want to check for any sort of trigger warnings for this one. But I really connected with this because there's a lot that resonated with me and my experiences, and yeah, I really felt moved by this book and Maggie's experiences and how she's come out of them on the other side. So it was definitely the one that moved me the most, but I didn't cry. The book that made you happy. I chose this one purely because it was just an absolute riot. I listened to this in audiobook and it is so out there. It's a real sort of out of left field. This sort of probably wouldn't happen in the normal day-to-day life, but 10 Things That Never Happened by Alexis Hall. This was just the cutest romp. I must have just been needing this at that point. It's reignited my passion for Alexis Hall and their stories, and I would love to read more of their work. Yeah, I definitely wouldn't say that this is like a literary masterpiece. I mean, the whole story is so out of left field, and you know, there's just no way that this situation would occur in real life. Loved it. It was a romp. It was so much fun. I think that they're going to become one of those authors for when I just need a bit of feel good in my reading experience. So that was probably the one that made me the happiest. The most beautiful book that you have bought or received so far this year. This was tricky because I have been trying not to buy books. I say that, I definitely have been buying books, but I've been trying really hard to not buy too many books, and if I have been buying them secondhand, or when I'm at the big Dimmicks in Melbourne, I give myself a little bit of leeway there. A lot of the books that I've picked up have been because I know that I'm going to enjoy the story, or I've read them and I want to read them again and I want them on my bookshelf, because obviously I would like my bookshelf to be sort of aligned with my actual reading enjoyment and style, and having books that reflect that. I picked up these two. I haven't really been focused on buying pretty covered books, especially, yeah, this year. But these two are probably the ones that I appreciate the most, and that is Empire of the Vampire by J. Kristoff. I just love this cover. I love that it is shiny. I love that the red is so vibrant, and it's just really cool. I really enjoyed it. I think it's really nice. So I haven't read it. I don't know how I'm going to go with it. I read the Nevernight series, really, really loved that. Understand the issues that people have with it, but I enjoyed it personally myself, and so I am excited to read this, and it's probably, yeah, my favorite cover of all the books I've purchased so far. But another one that I really picked up because of the cover, I have been trying to buy a little bit more of Stephen King's works, so when I have been buying secondhand, I've been looking out for some of his, and this one, I just love rainbow. I love lots of colors, and this one just really has that sort of lots of different colors, watercolor vibe. I love it. So Bazaar of Bad Dreams, this is one of his short story collections. I do have a couple of these now that I haven't had the chance to read yet. However, I really loved 11/22/63. I've read The Shining, I've read Dr. Sleep, I've read The Stand. Enjoyed those. It's hit and miss, you know, there's a lot that could be taken out of these books that would still make them great books. And hence why I'm daunted by it. I'm really scared to start that one. But yes, I have a lot of his books now that I'm really excited to read. I'm hoping that eventually, once I've read enough, I can do sort of like a tier ranking of my favorite Stephen King books. But yeah, this one, I just thought it was so pretty. And even though I have short story collections and I haven't read them yet, I thought I can't look past this one. It's just super pretty. What books do you need to read by the end of the year? All of them. I have so many. I have all of these. I have about 20 sitting in my room. I have about 800 on my Kindle, 30 of which are like my top priority that I've already downloaded in order to be able to read them as soon as I can. But I've gone through and collated a few of the many as kind of top priorities. So the first one is Una Out of Order by Margarita Montemor. This is about Una. It's New Year's Eve 1982. She's turning 19 at the turn of the year. So yeah, Una faints and awakens 32 years later in the future in her 51-year-old body. She then finds out that at the turn of every year she will leap to another random age. Time travel, timey-wimey. I love it. So I'm so excited to read this one. It's one that's been on my radar for a while, so when I saw it, I picked it up. I couldn't help myself. I'm super excited to read this one. Another one that's high on the priority list is Exquisite Corpse by Poppy Z-Bright. This is one that my brother had been looking for a really long time. He eventually found it, has finally finished reading it, and said that it's really, really good. He said that it is a hard read, but, you know, if you've read A Little Life, which is, you know, pretty big scale we're running with here because that is a hard read. He said that if you've read that, this will be fine. It's about a serial killer from London who ends up moving to New Orleans and connecting with another serial killer. I always find these books really intriguing. I don't read a lot of horror, but when I do read horror, I somehow tend to like lean towards the ones that are, you know, from the serial killer's perspective, because that fascinates me. Like, their minds fascinate me. It's going to be a quick read, I think. It's 250 pages or so, should be a lot of fun. Another one that I picked up, I have been wanting to pick this up for so long, and it is Paul Takes the Form of a Mortal Girl by Andrea Lawler. This looks so much fun. I can't wait to get my hands on this. It is set in 1993. Paul is a bartender at a local gay club, and he is a shapeshifter. So he transforms his body and his gender at will in search for belonging and love. This is a queer coming of age story where the hero is working his way through the experience of AIDS and opening into an array of intimate connections. It just seems so interesting. I can't wait to read this. I'm just so pumped. So pumped, I can't wait. Another one I really want to read is One Day by David Nichols. I haven't watched the movie, but I did sit down and watch the TV show and it absolutely crushed me. So I have a feeling that this one will also make me tear up because I cried so much with that series. It's so good. If you haven't watched it, I do recommend it. Really excited to see the original story and not just an adaptation of it. I hope it will hit as hard because yeah, it was really impactful. This is another one I bought purely because I was advised that, you know, ACOTAR and Fourth Wing are books that must be read. It's another one that I have been hesitant to pick up because of the hype. I've heard so many mixed reviews, and I'm sure that I will love it because I don't mind a read that's just good vibes if the writing's not great. But yeah, it's one that I'm hoping to read very soon. I have been considering doing a vlog for it, but also after my ACOTAR experience and not really having anything sort of to say except for it's okay and then what? It is great. I'm a bit nervous about doing a vlog, but if you would be interested in seeing that, please let me know in the comments. I would love to, you know, start doing some more vlogs. And I feel like this one might be one that would be a lot of fun to talk about. So let me know what you think. Another one that's high on my priority list is one that my boyfriend considers to be one of his favorites. He hasn't read a lot of Terry Pratchett. I personally love Terry Pratchett. I have watched most of the TV and movie adaptations of his books and have read not nearly enough. I've read 4 or 5 of his Discworld series books and just really love them, and I would love to read some more. This one will be really interesting because it is my boyfriend's favorite, but also my mum is a massive Terry Pratchett fan, and this just didn't hit the mark for her. So I'm really intrigued to see what my response will be to The Long Earth by Terry Pratchett and Stephen Baxter. I believe that there is some timey-wimey in here as well, so I'm really interested in picking this up as soon as possible. And yeah, just to see what I think, because my closest people have such differing views of it. So gonna be fun. I've talked about this series before, but I picked this one up and then I realized it was book 2. So then I went to book 1 and then realized there was a whole series before that. Would give me so much more context. And then I started reading that series and it very quickly became one of my favorite, all-time favorite book series. One that I am going to buy and have on my shelf. I don't have nearly enough of them in hard copy, but I have finally caught up on all of the previous book series, which is the St. Mary's Chronicles, and I have reread the first book because I read that one before realizing that there was a lot of Easter eggs. So I would like to get onto Hard Time. Book 2 in the Time Police series by Jodie Taylor. This is such a great series. It is a spin-off from the St. Mary's Chronicles. One of the main characters is connected to the main character in St. Mary's Chronicles. Without giving too much away, I won't tell you how, but I really enjoyed the first one. Absolutely thoroughly loved St. Mary's Chronicles, so really super pumped to keep going and restart this one. Just a couple others. I just recently finished season 2 of Interview with the Vampire, one of my all-time favorite TV series of all time, and made the decision to reread Interview with the Vampire. So I'm doing a buddy read with my mum at the moment of the first book in the Anne Rice Vampire Chronicles. I am absolutely loving it. I can't put it down. It's so different to the TV show, but then I kind of knew that. I remember when the show first came out, how angry I was with how different it was, but it's stolen my heart. It's such a good TV show and I highly recommend it if you haven't watched it. But yes, I have been reading Interview with the Vampire and I am so excited. I have only read the first 3 in the Vampire Chronicles, but my intention is to complete the 12. Yeah, I think there's only 12, complete the whole 12 of the Vampire Chronicles. And then there's authors that I'd like to continue working through their catalogue. One of them is obviously Brandon Sanderson. That man writes far too quickly for me to not be reading. I need to get onto book 2 out of the Mistborn Era 2 series, and I also really need to make a start on book 3 of the Stormlight Archives so that I can get on top of it before Wind and Truth. I also have the Secret Projects that I need to read, and I can't wait. So yeah, Brandon is definitely needs to be on the radar for the second half of the year. And then I'd like to do some more Stephen King. I'd really like to get onto the books that I've picked up, and I would really love to reread 11/22/63 because that was just such a great experience. And that is it. That is the questions for the mid-year freakout book tag. If you feel so inclined, I'd love to hear your answers in the comments, or send me a link to your video if you have done the same challenge. I would love to watch it. Subscribe if you're new. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey, and I hope to see you in a new video very, very, very soon. I will not be having a 2-month delay between this one and the next one, I promise. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I look forward to chatting soon. Goodbye, my darlings.